Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu-Ewart. It's Wednesday, September 7th. This is Africa 54.
The United Nations warns that Somalia is on the brink of famine for the second time in just over a decade, and time is running out to save lives. Growing anti-immigrant sentiment in South Africa leaves many immigrants extremely worried, even as the government extends the residence and work permits of almost 200,000 Zimbabweans. A tech company demonstrates how coding helps Ghanian children express themselves and bring fresh ideas to life.
The United Nations says there are solid indications that famine is likely to hit parts of Somalia in the Baidoa and Burkaba districts. It is feared the possible famine will impact displaced populations in Baidoa town of Somalia's Bay region unless humanitarian aid is ramped up. Ndiho has more.
The World Food Programme delivers life-saving assistance to more people than ever, reaching 3.7 million people with relief and over 300,000 with nutrition support.
Famine in Somalia is closer than ever. It's an imminent reality if we do not act immediately. As WFP, we know from experience that we cannot wait for a formal declaration of famine to act. So for months, we have been working to scale up our life-saving support in Somalia. We are reaching more people than we've ever had before. 3.7 million people with relief, and more than double the number that we have reached in April.
With the country gripped by a devastating drought and forecasts of unprecedented fifth consecutive failed rain season, famine is now projected in several districts of the Bay region of Somalia from October to December until resources can be secured to sustain and expand the scale-up of humanitarian assistance. According to the latest official national update, nearly half of the population of Somalia faced acute food insecurity in June. The situation has worsened since then, and updated figures are expected in the coming days. The hunger crisis in Somalia is primarily the result of severe drought. 4 consecutive rainy seasons have failed, and forecasts for the fifth are very poor. This is compounding the impact of other recurrent climate shocks, coupled with conflict and instability that worsens hunger and restricts humanitarian access. Food prices in Somalia were already rising sharply due to drought-induced livestock death and poor harvests. They soared even higher following the crisis in Ukraine. In June, the average cost of a household to meet its basic food needs was at its highest in 5 years. Ndiho, VOA News.
Now to West Africa, where that region is facing its worst food crisis in a decade due to increasing conflicts, droughts, floods, and the war in Ukraine, according to a report issued Tuesday by nearly a dozen international organizations. The number of West Africans needing emergency food assistance has nearly quadrupled since 2015 in nations including Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, Mali, and Nigeria, where thousands are displaced because of rising Islamic extremist violence. International organizations warn that that number could jump even further if action isn't taken soon to help people in the Sahel. Conflict in the region is forcing people from their land, and COVID-19 restrictions have closed borders to trade and pushed up prices. The Oxfam Regional Director for West and Central Africa tells us more.
It's an alert to the world. We're witnessing right now 27 million people in West Africa were affected by what we could consider the worst food crisis from the past 10 years. And if nothing is done, 11 million more people will join this group, making it to 38 million people would be affected. Another important driver that is new is the crisis in Ukraine. 6 out of the 12 countries where Oxfam operates in West Africa import their wheat from Ukraine or Russia. And because of this crisis, in Ukraine, this is no more possible. And if they cannot import wheat, that means it's creating shortage in the food available in the countries, and therefore, increasing the prices and making it very difficult for people to afford food.
6 out of the 12 countries where Oxfam operates in West Africa import their grain from Ukraine or Russia. The war in Ukraine is resulting in funding cuts to aid Africa. An estimated $4 billion is needed to provide adequate support to Africa, according to Oxfam. Officials from 24 African nations and U.S. climate envoy John Kerry gathered in Egypt Wednesday for a conference to obtain support for funding on tackling climate change. The 3-day forum comes days after African leaders lashed out at industrialized nations for failing to show up at a summit in the Dutch city of Rotterdam dedicated to helping African nations adapt to climate impact. Former UN Chief Ban Ki-moon noted that Africa emits only around 3% of global CO2 emissions, but African nations are among those most exposed to climate impact, most notably worsening droughts and floods. A major political change has taken place in the Central African nation of Burundi on Wednesday. Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye fired his prime minister and a top aide in a high-level purge after warning of a coup plot against him last week. Former Prime Minister Ale Guillaume Bunyoni and Cabinet Chief General Gabriel Nzigama were sacked. And at a hastily called parliamentary session, lawmakers approved the appointment of Security Minister Gervais Dirakubucha to replace Bunyoni as Prime Minister in a unanimous 113 votes to 0, according to national broadcaster RNTB. The Ugandan Red Cross says landslides triggered by heavy rain in a remote part of southwestern Uganda has killed at least 15 people. The Red Cross reported Wednesday that most of the victims are mothers and children. The group is calling the landslide in the hilly district of Kasese a disaster. Kasese, which lies near the border with Congo, is prone to deadly mudslides during the rainy seasons. Donning a festive white dress with her hair intricately braided and her eyes lined with the traditional kohl paint, Ethiopia's Yudita Ihab prepared for the annual Ashenda celebration in Sudan. The normally joyful week-long Ethiopian holiday was overshadowed by the ongoing war that has ravaged the northern Ethiopia region of Tigray. In Khartoum late last month, Yudita and thousands of women were playing drums to traditional music, with many wearing headbands of red and yellow, the colors of the Tigrayan flag. Traditional chicken stew and flatbread was also served to the crowd. Growing anti-immigrant sentiment in South Africa has left many black African immigrants very worried. Recent incidents, including the rape of 8 women by suspected undocumented migrants, have sparked anger from locals. As Tuso Kumalo reports from Johannesburg, there are now fears that more xenophobic violence is imminent.
When Zimbabwean national Elvis Nyati was burnt to death earlier this year by a group of locals after he failed to show them his passport, some say that was a clear sign that migrant safety is no longer guaranteed. It is videos like these that have continued to foment anti-foreign sentiments in South Africa. Foreigners are being seen by some as the cause of the ailing economy, unemployment, and crime.
They're committing human trafficking, car hijacking, they're doing robbing, syndicate, and it is difficult for the state, to the law enforcement agencies, to identify them because we don't have the fingerprints of those illegal immigrants. So they must go home.
Later, Ndiho is a South African living in Alexandra in Johannesburg. She has not been employed for some time now, and she believes this is because foreigners have taken all the jobs.
Here, they must bring scarce skills, because the skills that they are bringing are skills that we as South Africans can provide. But instead, we are sitting at home being unemployed.
However, many foreigners say they are creating employment for themselves. But locals argue that such opportunities must be reserved for only South Africans. Political analyst Gideon Chitanga is deeply concerned that the country is on the verge of explosive violence if these anti-foreigner sentiments continue.
I think we are at the peak of xenophobia, expressed in different forms, such as statements from officials, public officials, labeling migrants as foreigners. This, by implications, leads to them, the migrants, being targeted, removed from where they live, chased out, subjected to physical violence, excluded from medical access, jobs, and employment.
As anti-foreigner sentiment continue every day, Zimbabwean nationals living in South Africa are among those who are worried. 180,000 of them will have their permits terminated in less than a year's time. They fear that if they are forced to return home, they will face unemployment and other hardships in Zimbabwe. If they don't go back, they will be deemed illegal and risk arrest and deportation.
They want to renew our permits and then we go back to Zimbabwe. How are we going to survive in Zimbabwe? There are so many people in Zimbabwe who are struggling to put bread on the table. We go back to Zimbabwe. What are we going to do in Zimbabwe?
As the mobilization of violent protests continues, there is need for urgent action from the government of South Africa to curb the scapegoating of migrants and refugees and the widespread violence and intimidation against these groups. In his response to the current tension between foreign nationals and locals, President Cyril Ramaphosa told Parliament that he is strongly opposed to targeting of foreigners and trying to remove them from the country using unlawful means. He said as part of addressing the issue of illegal immigrants, the Department of Home Affairs has deployed border guards to intercept border jumpers. Thuso Kumalo for VOA News, Johannesburg.
Still to come, a technology-driven skills company in Ghana is teaching children how to code and bring their ideas to life. But first, Heidi Adams tells us what's on tap for Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa. Stay with us.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, Zambia is receiving a big rescue loan from the International Monetary Fund. Will this lead to a better life for Zambians and help rebuild the country's economy? Plus, we'll take a look at Kenya, where the Supreme Court has unanimously upheld the election victory of William Ruto as president. Join me, Heidi Adams, as we explore this and more on the next Straight Talk Africa.
All right. In other African news, at least 6 civilians were killed and 8 injured Tuesday when separatists in southwest Cameroon opened fire on a public bus. Police in Nigeria's Rivers State say they have rescued 15 children who were abducted in order to be trafficked. And the South Sudan Relief and Rehabilitation Commission says more than 100,000 people have been displaced in the recent wave of flooding across the country. The new British Prime Minister Liz Truss has appointed Kwasi Kwarteng as Britain's first black finance minister, while James Cleverly is the first black foreign minister. Kwarteng told bankers and investors on Wednesday that the government will need to borrow more than planned to support households and businesses through the energy crisis. It was his first public move since being appointed by Truss. Blessing Gobeni discovered art painting portraits of fellow prisoners during a 9-year jail sentence. He has just been showcased at a leading South African art fair. David Doyle has more.
Blessing Gobeni first picked up a paintbrush during a 9-year stint in prison. Now the South African artist is getting ready for an exhibition in the UK's capital, London, next year. But the 35-year-old says at first he wasn't sure of his talent.
I was like, let me just push my time and kill the time by drawing other inmates' portraits and designing birthday cards and writing messages.
This month, Gobeni's pieces were showcased at South Africa's FNB Art Joburg Fair. It's a leading contemporary art exhibition featuring artists from across the continent, back after a 2-year pause linked to the global health crisis. Gobeni's latest body of work is titled Spirit of Water Dancing. It features a set of antique armchairs and sofas, inspired by an eerie discovery in 2016 of a chair in North Georgia allegedly stuffed with the hair of slaves.
I recreated the same story using the same coaches, printed my work in these coaches and stuff in things that are very secretive to the people. But what I looked at also there, the beauty of these things that we have, these things that we own, lies a secret, lies DNA, lies memories, lies pain of the other people.
The art fair has pioneered Pan-Africanism since its inception. This year it featured exhibitions from galleries across the continent, including Zimbabwe, Botswana, Ghana, Uganda and Nigeria.
And it's time now for our tech segment, and joining us now is our technology reporter, Paul Ndiho. Paul.
Thank you, Esther. Learning to code is not simply about gaining a technical skill. It's about developing a voice and learning how to organize, express, and share ideas. In Ghana, Makers Place, a technology-driven skills development company, is helping children learn to code and bring their ideas to life. For more, I'm joined by Douglas Aite, founder and CEO of Makers Place and a STEM.org certified master trainer. Douglas Aite, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be on your show.
Let's start off by you telling us a little bit about Makers Place. What do you guys do?
Makers Place is an innovation space in Ghana that is specialized in K-12 education in Ghana and then in the sub-region, because we are the only organization that is providing STEAM, K-12 STEAM education, right, in the sub-region. In order to scale the future workforce today, then we make sure that we need to actually look at skills, disruptive technologies, and see how we can prepare people for this skills set, right, to meet the job demand. So we train people in robotics, which is relevant, right, in the 21st century when we are talking about Industry 4.0, right? We are talking about 3D printing and 3D modeling, right, which is also key for additive and subtractive manufacturing. And then we are talking about coding or computer programming, which is the basic for all of this to happen, right? In order to achieve Industry 4.0, most of the indicators, then it means that coding should be a basic literacy in schools. We have kids at age 6 and sometimes even 4 in primary 1 who have started coding, right? And I shared some video with you earlier on. You see them bringing their own devices to school and they are doing well as at now. So imagine a child in class 1, right, at age 5 or 6, learning how to code today. In 10 years' time, you can imagine the kind of people we are churning out in this country and then in other parts of the African continent.
You've created a system that allows you to remotely control your security lights.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, let's give it a try and see. Alexa, turn on the bedroom light.
Okay.
Alexa, turn on the night lamp.
Okay.
Alexa, turn on the outside lamp.
Okay.
Impressive.
And you can use this to control any home appliance, right? Your TV, your fridge, your air conditioning, anything that is on AC, you can use this device to control it.
Alexa, turn off the bedroom light. Alexa, turn off the night lamp. Perfect. I'm nearly 10,000 miles away from you and I'm able to remotely control your security system.
In Ghana.
In Ghana. Absolutely fascinating.
Alexa, turn off all lights.
How many people would you say you have maybe impacted this far?
I interact with a lot of students at the university level, right? As a part-time lecturer, I interact at Accra Technical University. I do that. I interact with a lot of students at that level. I also assist trained students within the K-12 band, right? So from primary 1 all the way to high school. At the high school level, we do more of an outreach program. And then in the basic school level, we go to schools like private schools and then some of the government schools to also provide STEM training as a service onto them, right? So they learn these skills like that. So when you quantify the numbers, aside that, we also do what we call teachers training, right? Recently, we had trained a trainer for ICT teachers, and it was sponsored by Microbit and then Nordic Semiconductor. And we had a lot of teachers applying, and the impact level was high. So when you quantify this, we can estimate that we have trained more than 5,000 people, right, in our database.
Where do you get the motivation?
When I see a lot of young people who are looking for a job, okay, sometimes I feel bad for it because I feel like there's so much potential, but these people, they don't know. So my motivation is that I want to make sure that the children do not come and behave like that, right? They don't fall into the same trap where they will graduate and then they are looking for a job, they're not getting the job. So my motivation is that let me go back to the classroom, let me go back, get teams together, and let's help these children so that the parents will have value for their money.
Well, Douglas, thank you so much for your time.
I'm glad to be on your show. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Douglas Aite is the founder and CEO of Maker's Place, based in Accra, Ghana. And that's today's Tech Report. Back to you, Esther.
Paul, thanks. Be sure to join Paul Ndiho every Wednesday right here for another tech segment on Africa 54. U.S. President Joe Biden is hosting former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama for the unveiling of their official White House portraits Wednesday. The White House collection dates back to the country's first leader, President George Washington, and includes every president since. Many are displayed in hallways and rooms at the White House. The White House Historical Association, which has funded the portraits since 1965, says recent leaders and first ladies have picked their artists for their portraits before leaving office and then approved the works before they are added to the collection. Well, we do have a story from Zambia, where a very talented young man has been roller skating from home to school to universities and is teaching others to do the same. Let's take a look. Paul Ndiho has this report for us.
Onija Zini, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to be here.
You are one of those young people who is trying to change how Zambians live. You have literally taken matters into your own hands, and you're training an army of young people to become professional roller skaters. The kids stay off the streets, and kids are healthy in Zambia.
So I live up in Zambia called Zampro Skaters, which refers to Zambian professional skaters. And I'm a national robo player in a sport called robo. It's an Indian sport that involves skating and basketball. I had a passion or a desire to open up a club and taught kids within my community how to skate. And numbers now that have actually increased massively and very, very, very good.
What does it take to be proficient at that stuff?
So at roller skating, it's actually easy. People would actually complain it's not easy at the first days, like when starting, which I can agree, because you need more practice for you to be more perfect, just for you to gain the balance. But for you to be stable in wearing or skating, you actually have to stand in a V position and bend your body for you to be way more stable.
Do you charge a fee to do this, or you just do it out of the love and that you have for the sport?
So for the sport, I have categories. So like in the community, I don't actually charge anything, but we do contributions for the club to be sustained. We have actually donors who contribute outfits to the kids. Some do contribute roller skating shoes to the kids, and some who can afford, they can actually buy for themselves. Those are people coming from the community. But for people who are in the middle class area, which I've actually utilized for my education psychology degree, for me to sustain myself, to pay for my college degree, and on top of that, to skate about 16.8 kilometers from home to school, going and coming back, just on roller skates for 4 years, never accommodated. That has actually helped me. Yes.
Every day you would skate to school?
Every day we skating to school, and a few times I would board the bus, but majority of the time I would actually skate.
How many kids have you been able to inspire to do this thing?
So in my neighborhood, I've taught people about 100 plus people within my community, but within the country, I've taught people above 1,000. Currently, we are teaching students at the University of Zambia how to skate and promote them, and also teach other universities. But currently, the University of Zambia is having students who are skating, and they're doing great. So when people are in traffic, sometimes I would tell a bus driver or a conductor from one point to the other, so we shall meet each other in front. Them having those stops and those traffic jams, I'll have enough time for me to reach from one point to the other.
It's a pleasure talking to you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate for your time and also for helping me out for this interview.
That wraps up our show this Wednesday. We invite you to watch Africa 54 on our website at VOAAfrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.